Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years, as well as today, and we pay our respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Any apologies?
Nil, Chair.
Are you sure?
Sorry. Mayor, Councillor Price is an apology for tonight. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. As Councillor Price is absent, I will preside over this meeting as the Deputy Mayor. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? None. Do we have any open forum questions?
Nil.
Thank you. Do we have any community and council achievements? Yes. Councillor Horn.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge a wonderful local milestone. In February 1976, the Chiltern Lions Club launched the Chiltern Grapevine, a community newspaper created by locals for locals. 50 years on, it's still going strong, keeping residents informed and connected, shared free with nearby towns and even mailed to out-of-town readers. That's an extraordinary achievement powered by volunteers who quietly show up month after month. 50 years of community connection, that's something worth celebrating. I'd like to commend the club on 50 years of continuous publication, and when the Mayor returns, I'll request that she write a formal letter of congratulations to the club. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. We'll note that action down for the Mayor on her return. Do we have any condolences? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to have the council express its condolences about Bob Simpson, and I've written out a little piece here. The Beechworth community was very saddened by the passing of Bob Simpson, a much loved and highly respected protector of Beechworth's heritage. Our condolences go to his wife, Rosemary, his family, and his many, many friends in Beechworth. Bob moved to Beechworth in 1989. I first encountered him when I moved here in 1991. When the Beechworth courthouse closed, Bob led the campaign to preserve and reopen the courthouse. In fact, you might call him Mr. Courthouse. He devoted many years to its operation, research, tours, and education programs. He had a great passion for local history and contributed a great deal to Beechworth's story. He will be remembered with affection and respect by the Beechworth community. On a personal note, he helped me many times with the Celtic Festival that I ran in the 1990s, and he helped with the little museum we have about the Beechworth Railway. There's a whole series of lanterns he lent to us, and he was quite generous with lending his artifacts and giving us information. And I'd just like to read a little quote from a former councillor and mayor, Bernard Gaffney, that had appeared in the Border Mail. He was the king of the volunteers in the historic precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Do we have any other condolences? Councillor Landells?
Thanks. I would like to acknowledge the passing of Dr. Cyrus Sharp. He was passed away on 19th of January 2026, aged 82. He was living in Thaguna at the time, but he was a long-time doctor with Beechworth Surgery and also very prominent in the Chiltern community. Many years of Beechworth Surgery ran an outreach GP clinic from the Bush Nursing Hospital in Chiltern. And so several Beechworth GPs rotated through that Chiltern clinic, but I think Cyrus was one of the regulars. He's a pretty much 100% of the time. And so he had a significant impact on the health of residents and families in both Beechworth and Chiltern over many years. So, I'd like us to send our condolences to his family.
Thank you, Councillor Landells, and we'll note that down, Annabelle. Yep, thank you. We'll move on to item 8, confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. This is a recommendation. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. 1, minutes of the council meeting held on 16th of December 2025 as published on council's website, and 2, confidential minutes of the council meeting held on 16th of December 2025 as provided to councillors under separate cover. Can I have someone to move that motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Harvey, and someone to second. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried, unanimous. Item 9 is business arising from previous minutes. At the confidential council meeting on 25th of November 2025, council endorsed the recommendations from the Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee to present the following recipients with an Indigo Shire Australia Day Awards for 2026. Indigo Shire Citizen of the Year, Miss Guina Gray. Young Citizen of the Year, Amy Schilling. Indigo Shire Community Organisation of the Year, Kiwa Cricket Club. Chiltern and District Certificate of Achievement, Shane Prater. Kaganya and District Certificate of Achievement, Rowan Wallace. Yakandanda and District Certificate of Achievement, David Pinder. Rutherglen and District Certificate of Achievement, Carol Fursden. Emma George Junior Sporting Scholarship, Liana France. Would anyone like to make any comment on that? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. On Australia Day, I was pleased to present Australia Day Awards to 2 local Kiwa recipients. Rowan Wallace is a very deserving recipient of the Kaganya and District Certificate of Achievement Award and the Kiwa Cricket Club for the Indigo Shire Community Organisation of the Year. Australia Day is a time to recognise those contributions, the people and clubs who don't seek attention but make a real difference in our communities. Rowan embodies that spirit through her quiet commitment and readiness to step up for community over many, many years. She's made a genuine and lasting contribution to the community. She's never sought recognition, which makes it all the more deserved. I also want to acknowledge the Kiwa Cricket Club for its leadership in promoting and growing women's cricket in our community. That commitment to inclusion and opportunity strengthens not just the club, but our whole community.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. In addition to that item, at the confidential council meeting on the 16th of December 2025, council made the following appointments. Ross Kearney was appointed as chair of the Audit and Risk Committee for a further 11-month term until 16th of October 2026, and Russell James was appointed as a member of the Indigo Environment Advisory Committee. If there's no further comments, I'll move on to item 10, which is petitions. Do we have any petitions?
Neil, Deputy Mayor, Dowsland.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 11, Planning and Corporate Services. 11.1 is the January 2026 Finance Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council accepts the January 2026 Finance Report, noting the progress against the Council's Q1 forecast. Do we have someone to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Burke. Do we have someone to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I support the adoption of the January 2026 Finance Report. This report provides council and the community with a transparent snapshot of our financial position as at the end of January. It shows that year to date we're tracking favourably against the Q1 forecast. That reflects careful monitoring and disciplined financial management by our staff. However, it is important to understand what is driving that favourable position. A significant component relates to natural disaster funding reimbursements and timing differences in expenditure, including employee costs. These are legitimate and welcome, but they are not structural changes to our long-term financial position. We continue to operate in a rate cap environment. Our capacity to grow revenue is constrained while the cost of delivering services and maintaining infrastructure continue to rise. Roads, bridges, drainage, parks, buildings and community facilities all require ongoing investment. And depreciation remains a substantial expense which reflects the size of our asset base and the responsibility we carry. The report also highlights that while we are approximately 58% through the financial year, capital works delivery is tracking at around 31% of the forecast. This suggests we are likely to see a carryover of some continuing projects into the next financial year, which will require careful planning. Overall, this financial report demonstrates sound governance. It provides clarity, transparency and realistic forecasting. It shows that council is managing within its constraints while continuing to deliver essential services to our community. For these reasons, I support the adoption of the January financial report.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. We'll just get you to turn your microphone off, please. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I just have a brief question for our Director of Planning and Corporate Services. Can the natural disaster funding of $1.477 million, where has this money come from? Is that from flooding or is this from leftover from COVID?
Yeah, thank you. That was for the flooding and storm events from 22. Yeah. And so these processes take quite a while after the storm events. It requires a lot of work to assess the infrastructure that's been damaged, and we're reimbursed by a state government for those expenses, minus a small deductible of about 35,000. This is one of the last tranches of money that we will receive, and part of it is for work that has already been done, and that's a reimbursement, and part of it is for work that will be finished off soon.
Do we anticipate it will be finished by the end of the year?
I will refer that one to our infrastructure colleague.
Thank you. Look, I can't recall the exact dates. I know we poured over it in the budget review looking into next year's budget. So a fair bit of it we're forecasting will be finished this year, so by June. But I think, look, certainly any works not finished by then won't be far off after that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments, Councillor Horn?
No.
No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll just say a few words. It's encouraging to see a year-to-date surplus of 1.07 million against the Q1 forecast. However, as Councillor Burke mentioned, when we look more closely, much of this favourable position is timing related rather than structural. The largest variance sits within operating grants, particularly the 1.48 million in natural disaster funding, which we know will be offset by corresponding expenditure. So while it strengthens the year-to-date result on paper, it doesn't materially improve our underlying financial position. Overall, while the headline result is favourable, the underlying picture suggests volatility driven by timing differences, disaster funding flows and cost pressures in contracts, legal and fleet. It's critical we ensure we are not mistaking timing advantages for long-term financial improvement. Having said that, this report accurately reflects the current financial situation and it should be endorsed. Councillor Burke, would you like to sum up?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. That moves us on to item 11.2. CEO, I would like to move an alternate motion for this item, so I would like to vacate the chair.
To go somewhere. So councillors, as required under the governance rules, a person who's in the chair who wants to move a motion needs to vacate the chair to do that. Ordinarily, the mayor would be chairing the meeting, and in the event the mayor moved, the deputy mayor would step into the role automatically. But in this case, with the mayor being absent and the deputy mayor moving the motion, we then move into situation envisaged under clause 29, which requires the CEO to temporarily chair the meeting, and that we ask the meeting to elect a chair just for the duration of this item. So can I please call for nominations for a person to act as a temporary chair for the duration of this item only? Councillor Harvey? Councillor Burke, you okay to accept that?
Yes, I accept that.
You have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Landals? Do we have any other nominations for the role? Can I have a vote? Put the motion, please, that Councillor Burke chair the meeting for this item. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Burke, can you please relocate yourself to the chair's position?
Okay, so we'll now call for a motion we have the motion as stated, but if we have another motion to be submitted.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to move a motion for an alternate motion for this item. If I could read that out. So my alternate motion includes the two stated recommendations that are in the agenda. So that Council 1 adopts the Q2 2025-26 forecast for both operating, as shown in the operating statement below, and capital, as shown in the attached capital works monitor, and 2 directs the CEO to report against these forecast figures for the remainder of the financial year. In addition, my alternate motion adds item 3, notes the significant level of capital works carried forward identified in the mid-year financial review. Item 4, requests the CEO provide a report to Council outlining A, the project readiness criteria applied before inclusion in the annual budget, B, the organisation's delivery capacity for capital works programs, C, recommended improvements to ensure future capital budgets represent a realistic delivery program, and item 5, refers this matter to the Audit and Risk Committee to consider whether additional independent assurance is required regarding capital forecasting assumptions.
Okay, so that motion has been placed. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank
Yes, I
you.
would like to second that motion.
Thanks, Councillor Horn. Okay, so Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to this motion?
I would, thank you. I want to begin by making it very clear that this alternate motion is not a criticism of staff effort or intent. Delivering infrastructure in a small rural shire is complex and variations do occur. However, under the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are responsible for adopting the budget, the financial plan and the asset plan. We are not simply observers of these documents, we are legally accountable for the decisions to adopt them. The Q2 report before us shows a forecast capital delivery of approximately 8.1 million, with a proposed carry forward of approximately 7.6 million. This means close to half of the adopted capital program will not be delivered within this financial year. On its own, that is significant, but when viewed in the context of previous years, a pattern emerges. In 2021-22, the adopted capital budget was 18.8 million, with actual delivery of 10.9. In 2022-23, 16.9 million adopted, 11.5 delivered. In 23-24, 19.9 million adopted, 11.6 delivered. And in 24-25, 18.3 adopted, with 13.6 delivered. Across 4 consecutive years, actual delivery has been substantially below the adopted program. At that scale, this is no longer routine project timing. It raises a governance question about the reliability of the assumptions underpinning the budgets we adopt. The Victorian Auditor-General's Office has addressed this issue directly in its reports on financial sustainability and asset management. The Auditor-General has found that over-programming capital works reduces the credibility of budgets and long-term financial plans, and that councils should align capital programs with what they can realistically deliver. This is not about blame, it is about community confidence. If projects are entering the budget before they are fully scoped, designed, funded, or delivery ready, then councillors may be approving programs that were not realistically achievable at the time of adoption. That exposes council to reputational risk, undermines community trust, and places councillors in a difficult position regarding our governance obligations. The community reasonably expects that when council adopts a capital program, it reflects what will actually occur within that year, not a program that is routinely deferred. For that reason, I believe it is appropriate and consistent with good governance to seek assurance around project readiness criteria, delivery capacity, and assumptions used in capital forecasting before we move into the next budget cycle. This motion is about strengthening our processes, improving budget credibility, and ensuring that when we adopt future capital programs, we do so with full confidence that they are achievable.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Okay, so I'll just clarify the situation. We have an alternate motion that Deputy Mayor has read out and spoken to. So we'll now vote on that. No, sorry. Oh, sorry. So we now need a seconder for, and we've got to sit and vote. That's right.
I have a question, if you don't mind. Yep, I have a question. So I'm interested in what you've just said. What do you think of this capital works and budget that we've got at the moment? What are you worried about that we're not able to deliver? Like, I suppose the question is, there must be something here that you're concerned about, and therefore you're trying to circumvent that by planning in the future. So what in this particular budget and capital works are you concerned that we aren't going to deliver within this? I mean, we won't deliver in this 6 months, but within the timeframe that you're going to of a council plan.
The question is directed at me, Councillor Shepherd.
It's your motion, so you're the
Yes.
one who's trying to ask us to move, support you.
Yes.
And I need to find out why you think you deserve the support on that. Like, what is it that's triggering this for you that
For
we
me-
should react?
Yes. So in terms of what won't be delivered, I think that that's clearly articulated in the report. I think there are a number of projects. I don't have the exact number. I didn't count them, but would say there was well in excess of 20 projects on the report that won't be delivered in this financial year that we told the community we would deliver. And that is the crux of my concern with over-promising delivery to the community. We set expectations with the community around what we are spending the money on and how we are being sound financial managers. And I'm concerned that our consistent over-promise, under-deliver reduces our credibility within the community.
Another question. So that, again, I ask, what of those 21 capital works are you concerned we're not going to deliver within the next 4 years? I won't argue, I won't discuss, just a question. So you're saying, I don't think there is an expectation we're going to do it in 6 months, but in the next 4 years, aren't we going to be able to deliver? What are we overstating?
So I would argue that we did tell the community we would deliver this in 6 months because we adopted a budget for the 2025-26 financial year that specifically said we would deliver these projects. And now we are saying what we approved 8 months ago is now not achievable. So I need confidence as a councillor that when I'm approving a document, particularly a financial document, that says that we will deliver 15 odd million dollars of capital works, that within 8 months I'm not being told that we can't deliver half of it. I need confidence that we're giving the community the right information when we're approving these documents.
And so I note, another question, so I note that you have with ABC, with C and D, whatever those numbers are at the end, you've asked us to do some particular things, and I'm wondering how they are going to give you that confidence. That's what I need to know. What makes you think that by doing those extra things that you've asked for, that the community is going to feel more confident in our delivering of our capital works program over the 4 years?
I think our community is frustrated that we say we're going to deliver things and then we don't deliver them on time. I could name numerous projects where we have given the community timelines around delivery and we've delivered those over schedule. I think that this will aim to give more confidence in terms of the additional dot points that I've added to the motion. One of the main concerns I have is around project readiness entering into the budget. So are projects at a point where they can reasonably be expected to be delivered within 12 months? Do we have concept design completed? Do we have detailed design completed? Have we allowed time for the tendering process? Have we allowed time for construction? And then the quitting of finances. This is general project management in delivering a schedule for a project that I would like the CEO to come back to us to provide more information on what those project readiness criteria are, so that when we're presented with a project at council adoption, that we can be confident that that project is ready to be delivered.
Another question. So what happens with grant monies that we get early? We're not ready yet to do that. As you say, we're not shovel ready, but we get the money. Should we not accept them? Because it doesn't fit into that we're not going to be able to do it this particular budget year. What do we do with our extra funding that we receive?
It's very common for projects to stretch over more than one financial year. So just because you've received most of our grant money is we don't actually receive until we've spent it, but we might get a commitment to fund a project, in which case we do a normal, this is why I think at the last meeting I moved a motion to adopt a 4-year 4-year capital delivery program, because putting all of the money into 1 year is not necessarily realistic for our community. We might budget detailed design in year 1, we might budget construction in year 2, or construction might be over years 2 and 3. So I would suggest that we certainly don't give up on those opportunities, but we're realistic about when that expenditure will occur in a project timeline.
Okay, Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to it?
I reserve my right, thank you.
Any other speakers to talk to this? Thanks, Councillor Lander.
Thank you. As we've just heard, there's been carry forwards have been quite consistent over a number of years leading up to 25-26. I would like to ask the Director of Infrastructure Services about that. Is this particular financial year, it seems comparatively large compared to the previous year, but also the fact that these carry forwards have been fairly consistent for 4 or 5 years. Are you able to offer some explanation about that and why that occurs?
Through the acting chair, thank you for the question. Look, it's really hard to compare. I think if I look back and I heard the Deputy Mayor read out those figures over the last few years, what we saw were quite an inflated capital works program. We saw a lot of grants sort of over the COVID years, and we've probably come out of the back of that. And so I think the numbers we read out of the total adopted budgets were significantly higher than what they've been this year. But yeah, look, there certainly has been a pattern. When I look at this year's figures, they're certainly concerning on the surface. I think we've constantly delivered works of 11 million plus, 11 to 13 million typically. And then this year, I think with the adopted budget of 13.5, was it? Yeah, 13.5. We added to that with a little bit of carry forward at the Q1 adjustments. That was about 700 odd thousand. We also recognised 1.3 million of additional projects that had come on through grants being announced. So I guess that's sort of where the 15 million come from. But whether it was 15 or 13, and we compare back to the original budget, the fact that we're only delivering a little over half of that, or that's our forecast. So on the surface, that's a really low year for us, just in pure numbers, and as a percentage, it's a concern. And then I guess the comfort I have is then when I look at the details of the projects that we carry forward and the circumstance, and that's probably the key rather than trying to work out what's an acceptable level or anything. So, certainly on the surface, 8 million is lower than what we would have projected. And when we looked at that, budget at the start of the year, when we look at the circumstances, and we don't need to go through, I think they're well documented in the report, but there's a lot of sort of individual things sort of outside sort of the control of, staff. There's been different reasons that they haven't been able to progress, and things that we couldn't have reasonably anticipated at the start of the year. On top of that, some related to, grants that haven't been forthcoming. There's another one in there. It's a $2 million fully funded program over 2 years. So, we speculatively said, well, why don't we just divide that evenly over 2 years? Maybe the better way was to put a smaller amount in year one and a larger amount in year two. So I think, look, there's some lessons we can take in terms of the way we budget, but I think contextually, which is the question you've asked, the detail is in, just the list of projects that are, forecast, and there's, a few large ones that make up the bulk of that. So, they've just each got their own story and their own circumstance, and I suppose that's where I get, some comfort, but not denying that, we would have, liked to have been able to deliver a larger quantum.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to say anything? Di? Councillor Shepherd?
As we've already noted, it's not unusual for us to have carry forwards at mid-year. And really, they reflect the realities of delivering infrastructure in our context, in a rural context. We've got external funding dependencies, market constraints, weather, as we've just seen. We've got all sorts of things that stop us from continuing or get in the way. The key requirement for us as councillors, I think, is for us to not eliminate carry forwards, but to ensure they are accurately identified, clearly explained, and appropriately incorporated into council's financial planning and risk oversight processes. So this particular motion is our opportunity to be going deep diving into why we've got carry forwards and going through the capital works monitor and asking, and that's where the transparency is. The community should be listening to ask why are there delays, and hear those explanations like we just had from the Director of Infrastructure and Services saying that these are the reasons. I know the reasons, ask me and I'll tell you. And that's what the community need to hear. I don't think community need us to be trying to, in the background, put in processes that make it difficult for us to deliver on all of our council plan expectations. They expect us to deliver them. I don't think they expect us to deliver them within the first year. I think they have an understanding that if we ask and they hear what the holdups are, they will take that into consideration, as do we. We, as you know, we interrogate those each monthly. We interrogate those monitors and we ask, what's the delay? What's going on here? Why is this behind? But we always know that it's going to be spent. We always know how it's going to be spent. So I really am still, look, I appreciate that you're trying to get to the bottom of how to make this more explainable to the community, how to put the data within the correct space. But I'm not sure whether all of these things you're asking are going to give those answers. Perhaps I really haven't yet heard from you yet how those three things you're asking for are going to make me feel more comfortable. I'm already quite comfortable in being able to interrogate this in this process that we have every quarter.
Thanks, Councillor Shepherd. Anyone else to say anything? I'll then call on Councillor Horn to sum up. To write reply, yeah, thanks.
I see this report as very useful. Big picture check-in, because it provides a straight line of sight from what we've planned, what's changed along the way, and to what the end result is likely to look like, so we don't get any surprises at the end of the year. I'd like to thank Councillor Dowsley for her amendment, which I'm happy to support, as it helps us link Q1 to Q2, and it gives a simple way to explain carry forwards, why they happen, what's driving them, and what we can do to reduce them over time. It's a great way for the community to follow the story rather than just looking at numbers.
Thanks, Councillor Horn. I'll also say something in support of the motion. The mid-year financial review highlights a significant level of capital works carried forward. Now, I see this as an opportunity to strengthen our systems and improve how we plan and deliver our overall capital program. I want to acknowledge the significant work our staff do in managing a complex and demanding capital program. Delivering projects across a rural shire comes with real challenges, from contractor and procurement availability to weather, to funding, to compliance and supply chain pressures. Delays can and do occur, but I think we have a responsibility to make sure that when we adopt a capital budget, it reflects a program that is realistic, achievable and deliverable, and that we can deliver it. This motion is about improving clarity and confidence. It asks the CEO to outline the project readiness criteria that is applied before it's included in the budget, and that will help us understand how projects are assessed before being listed, whether design, costings and approvals are sufficiently advanced to be in the budget. It also seeks advice on the organisation delivery capacity, ensuring that the plan aligns with available resources and project management capability. And importantly, it asks for recommended improvements so that future capital budgets represent a truly deliverable program. That's about continuous improvement, but certainly not any criticism. Referring the matter to the Audit and Risk Committee is appropriate. Independent oversight strengthens transparency and gives council confidence that our forecasting assumptions are robust. So for those reasons, I'll support the motion. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to sum up?
I would, thank you. This is not about making projects harder or more difficult. This is about doing what we say we will. Under the Local Government Act 2020, we are responsible for adopting a financially sound and credible budget. When delivery differs materially from what we approved, it is entirely appropriate to seek assurance. Strengthening our processes protects the organisation, protects councillors, and ultimately protects community confidence. That is why I'm supporting or raising this alternate motion.
Okay, so just before we vote, just to repeat that if this motion is not successful, we will then go back to the original motion as put into the agenda. Okay, I'll now call for those in favour of the alternate motion that's been put. Okay, so that's Councillors Dowsley, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Horn and myself, Councillor Burke, voting in favour. Those against? Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Landells. Therefore declare the motion is carried. So I'll now vacate the chair and Deputy Mayor can take over. Thank goodness.
Thank you. That moves us on to item 11.3, the Environmentally Sustainable Design Policy 2026. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council adopts the Environmentally Sustainable Design Policy 2026. Do I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Shepherd, someone to second the motion? Councillor Landells. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
So this has been out for public comment, and I'd just like to thank the two people who, two submissions that we received. One related to environmental waste and stormwater management, with particular regard to shortfalls in current infrastructure, but it did not object to the draft policy, but raised concerns regarding Council's ability to ensure decision-making is based on current science and up-to-date background documents and information. So it has been amended to ensure current and up-to-date documents are referenced. So that was an important submission. Thank you. And submission 2 raised concerns regarding the overlap between the draft ESD policy and current planning schemes. But this particular person clearly supported the intended outcomes of the draft ESD and states that it is difficult to argue with the premise that we should be doing more to achieve best practice ESD outcomes. So I think we discussed last time that we're doing this because we want to give clear outline to developers and to our community that we want to reduce environmental impacts. We want to support sustainable built form. We want to integrate water sensitive urban design, protect and enhance the natural environment, encourage sustainable transport, build climate resilience. And that these are all within the ESD policy, and I am very happy to have this, if it gets passed, as part of our process now into the future when we are looking at planning developments and subdivisions.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thanks. I think we started discussing this with the planning team midway through last year, and I'm not sure the exact date, probably around about, I'd think around about August. So I think it's been a great outcome that it's moved forward this quickly, that it's we've had a draft policy put together, we've looked at best practice throughout the state, and then that policy's gone out to community for comment and coming back to for potential adoption here tonight. So I think that's been a great outcome, and it will definitely give some strong guidance around ESD principles for new subdivisions and developments. So I think that's a really positive thing.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I'm hoping that community members are not survey fatigued and are up for the challenge of endorsing the release of this draft of the Indigo Destination Management Plan 2036. You've now
Hang
got,
on, sorry, we're the one item before. Environmental Sustainable Design Policy,
where am I?
11.3.
Oh, I'm right off the road, aren't I? Sorry. Sorry, no, I'll take it all back. Yeah.
You don't want to speak to this one?
Oh.
No. Okay. Would anyone like to speak to the motion? No, well, I'll say a few words. I'm very pleased to support the adoption of the Environmentally Sustainable Design Policy 2026. This policy gives clear, consistent expectations around sustainable design in developments that already require a planning permit. It doesn't create new permit triggers, it just strengthens how we assess energy use, water management, urban heat and livability outcomes. The thresholds are proportionate and focus on developments where design decisions have long-term impacts. This is a practical, measured step forward and I'm very happy to support it. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up?
I think Councillor Landell's made a good point to thank the staff for their great work in getting this to us so quickly when it was a concern to us with the developments that we've had coming to us. We felt we really needed some more guidelines and they stepped up and we've received it very quickly. So I think it would be remiss of us not to thank them for that speedy work.
Excellent, thank you. I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12, Community and Economic Development, 12.1, Draft Destination Management Plan 2036. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council endorses the Draft Indigo Destination Management Plan 2036 released for public exhibition for a period of, I'm going to make a slight amendment to Councillor Shepherd.
If I could just amend that to read 6 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. So that will be for a public exhibition for a period of 6 weeks. For the other councillors, that's a slight amendment to the agendas that you have in front of you. Can I have someone?
We need to move that as a motion? Yeah, I would like to move that as a motion that we amend that to read 6 weeks.
Yep. So do we have a mover for that alternate motion? That's Councillor
That's
Shepherd.
me.
And someone to second, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion? No.
Oh, well, I will. It's a large document and I know this has been out for a lot of comment beforehand. We've spoken to a lot of stakeholders, done a lot of engagement with the people who have an input stakeholder in this, but the ordinary community member probably has not had the opportunity to look at this. And it's a big, bold document that really needs sitting down and having a think about it. And we've got 6 weeks, so why not make it 6 weeks that people have to give us feedback? The more feedback we get on it, the better, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think it's very important that we give the extra time because it is a very big, bold document. And hopefully people will take advantage of the time to read it thoroughly and give us their opinions. Thank you.
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Horn.
Just a very brief comment. To say that this is the next stage in the development of this ambitious yet challenging long-range plan aimed at squarely putting us front and centre within a global context.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells.
Yep. Look, I am aware that in the last week, 2 tourism groups in Rutherglen and Chiltern have had their monthly meetings. So I just sort of think the 6 weeks gives them time when they have their next meeting to, this will still be live and out for review and gives them, a week or two to get information back to council about it. So I think the extra couple of weeks would be valuable there.
Thank you, Councillor Landales. Just to confirm, we are discussing the entire amended motion, not just the 6 weeks? Yes. So you'll be making comment on the entire motion, just with the small amendment. Councillor Burke, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so thank you, Deputy Mayor. I support putting the Green Gold Rush Plan out for public feedback. And what a great name for a destination plan. I love it. Tourism is already a big part of our local economy. It supports cafes, pubs, wineries, accommodation, events, and local jobs. But the real question isn't just how do we get more visitors? It's how do we grow tourism in a way that still feels good for the people who live here? And that's what I like about this plan. It's not just about increasing visitor numbers. It sets 4 clear goals for 2036. Firstly, to grow the local visitor economy to $265 million. But most importantly, make Indigo the place with the highest resident satisfaction about tourism in Australia, which is quite a bold and ambitious goal. Also, to reduce carbon emissions per visitor in line with the United Nations targets. And the last goal is to increase by 20% the number of tourism experiences that share our cultural and heritage stories. One of those goals is about how residents feel. That's important. Tourism should add to our lifestyle, not take away from it. We've seen in many well-known overseas destinations what happens when tourism isn't properly managed. If tourism isn't balanced, locals pay the price through higher housing costs, crowded infrastructure, and the loss of community character. The plan also focuses on protecting our environment and working more closely with traditional owners. Our landscapes, history, and village feel are what makes Indigo so unique. If we lose that, we lose the reason why people will visit us in the first place. Tonight isn't about locking the plan in, it's about giving the community a chance to read it, to think about it, and tell us what works and what doesn't before it's finalised. I encouraged residents to have a look and provide feedback over the next 6 weeks. For those reasons, I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Just in the interest of, I think there was a little bit of confusion there over whether we were discussing the 6 weeks or the whole motion. I'll give anyone the opportunity that has already spoken if they wanted to add to anything that they've said. Yes, Councillor Landales.
Thank you. I remember when this plan started being crafted, I guess, the engagement strategy, etc. And one of the decisions we made was to do this plan in-house, which was going to be, it comes with challenges because people have got to manage their day-to-day workloads and management, etc. But it also reflects that there's quite a bit of unique customised knowledge of our communities. But, and essentially, as I understood at the time, we were going to save a significant amount of money by doing it that way. But I really like this approach because, and I sort of take my hat off to the Tourism Department for bringing together the document that we've got before us that we're putting out to the community. Because I think there's been some smart things done here where the community often gets quite tired of hearing about the amounts of money paid to external consultants and things like that. But we've kind of got the best of both worlds here because we've gone to subject matter experts in sustainable regenerative tourism, visitor economy, cultural heritage. We've also put it out to peer review, bringing in tourism bodies in Queenstown, New Zealand, Vancouver Island in Canada, and also Noosa in Queensland. So getting a real wide variety of expertise and peer review on it. So I think, I suppose just picking up on Councillor Burke's comment about that very bold, I had the same words, bold, ambitious goal about for Indigo Shire aiming to be the highest resident sentiment towards tourism in Australia. I was wondering if the Director of Community and Economic Development might be able to expand on why we're confident that we can do that.
Thanks, councillor. I think I'll have difficulty summing this up better than councillor Burke did when he spoke to this strategy. I think one of the things that sets this strategy apart from traditional tourism strategies or tourism strategies that have been in Indigo in the past or occur elsewhere is this one very much focuses on the triple bottom line, where resident sentiment and resident amenity is considered on equal par or on par with the economy and the stimulation to the economy that tourism can bring. And it's also got a very strong focus on environmental regeneration and certainly not degradation. So the first year of the strategy will be about establishing the action plan and the measurables for how we measure the success of the strategy. So that really is the first substantial piece of work that will then turn into 3-by-3 year action plans where we've got the measurements clearly defined in terms of baseline and methodology to manage that, to measure our progress as we deliver the strategy. But I think the fact that we're aiming for it at this very beginning, at the adoption of the strategy stage, sets us on that path that is quite unique.
Thank you. I'm genuinely excited to support the public exhibition of the draft Indigo Destination Management Plan 2036. What makes this strategy particularly innovative, as others have already mentioned, is its shift from passive visitation to purposeful travel, encouraging longer stays, dispersal across our townships, and deeper engagement with local businesses, producers, and stories. It embraces regenerative tourism, as Sally's just mentioned, principles, acknowledges our landscape and climate realities, and integrates sustainability rather than treating it as an add-on. Importantly, it aligns tourism with economic resilience. It understands that in a small rural shire, tourism isn't separate from community wellbeing. It underpins hospitality, retail, events, and cultural life. This is progressive regional thinking. It positions Indigo not as competing, but confidently owning what makes us distinct. And I'm really excited to hear what the community has to say about this document, and really encourage anyone that has an interest to please read it and comment. We'd love to hear what you think about it. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up?
I think without Susanna selling it, we've done our best. We really have. And congratulations on the councillors who've spoken to this. You've into the staff, Sally. Everyone's tried, but until you hear Susanna, who is embedded in this, and her staff, who have spent the last 4 years, 3 years, working towards this document, and her telling us this is a complete turnaround from our last tourism strategy, where I was part of that discussion way back then, where it was all about the economy, really. This time, as everyone has said, it's about tourism fitting in with us, not us fitting in with tourism. And all the things that we love about our shire, making sure it becomes better rather than less with these people visiting. I hope you all get to hear her somewhere, because she sells it beautifully, and you just keep nodding, going, yes, we need to do that. So I'm not trying to influence you in any way. Read it yourself, but you need Susanna's voice in the back of your head while you're reading it. So yeah, exciting to send this out to the community for feedback.
Thank you. We'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to item 13, infrastructure services, 13.1, monthly capital works report, January 2026. The item is for decision. The recommendation that council notes the January 2026 capital works report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the capital works program. Somebody to move the motion. Thank you, Councillor Burke, and second, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing to say, thanks.
Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm just trying to find the monitor, but I suppose this is the opportunity that we've got to do exactly what we talked about with the Q2, is to ask questions about why things are behind, what the progress is, where there may be difficulties. And this particular document, as we've already said, where a number of projects remain stubbornly slow to progress. I love that statement, stubbornly slow to progress, with planning and design now becoming drawn out. And this has had an impact on the Q2 budget and forecasting, as it needed to carefully consider how likely projects are to progress towards completion. So there's a number of programs in here. The capital works of note since the last report, Tangambalanga public toilet, it's been completed and open to the public. The Rutherglen Memorial Town Hall roof's been done, which is fantastic. The IT projects is nearing completion. Bridge renewal works, ongoing and regular renewal work is required to keep them in serviceable condition. The footbridge in Main Street, Chiltern, underwent a significant renewal with the beams, deck and handrail replaced. Road patching and rehabilitation of $150,000. Road sealing, $640,000. Gravel road resheeting, $665,000. Barmutha Park cricket nets, $167,000. And Barnawatha Recreation Reserve overlighting, $76,000. So they're the things that are of note in this document. But again, this is where we have the opportunity to go through and say, why are they behind? And thank the staff for finishing the ones that we have in this document.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells.
Yeah, I'd really just like to talk about one item on there, but also it's really a whole, it's the last project really in a whole area of really a new precinct, I guess, in Tangambalanga. So the public toilet that's been built there is in an area that really didn't exist 3 years ago. I remember actually being before coming a councillor, I was actually out at the Kiwa Valley Primary School Fete, and council staff were out there getting feedback from kids and different things about what sort of things are a design of a pump track out there. And of course, you know, you put a pump track there and then all of a sudden if you're wanting parents to come there and whatever, well, eventually there's pressure to perhaps have toilet facilities there too. But there's also in that area, there's a community garden, there's a playground, and there's picnic tables as well. So, and it's adjacent to a new housing area too. So it's really, yeah, I think it's kind of, it's great to see this, you know, this toilets, you know, really coming as a very important amenity for that whole new precinct that's been created.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No, if not, I'll go back to Councillor Burke. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I will sum up with the observation, just following on from what Councillor Landells made about the Tangam toilet block there. It's really good now when you're driving around the new estate, and there's people have parties there, and the kids are out on the pump track. I'm not sure what the technical term is, that it's it's activated or it's something, but there's a lot of people having a lot of fun and just enjoying, living in Tangam and having parties there. And it's great when you drive around and you see that happening. That's a good investment in local assets.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Item 14, Office of the CEO. Item 14.1, Community Engagement Strategy 2025 to 2029. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council adopts the Community Engagement Strategy 2025 to 2029. CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dowsley. Councillors, could I ask that you consider a slightly amended version to the one that was shown on the council website? If you refer to the report itself, it refers to one of the submissions questioning the minimum engagement period of 2 weeks, and the response we gave at the time was the minimum 2-week period is contained in the policy, the overarching policy. So we put a reply in there to say, well, the strategy is consistent with the policy. But upon reflection, we felt that it would be okay for the strategy to have a slightly longer period as a bare minimum, even if that was slightly at odds with the policy. Compliance with 3 weeks would certainly still be in compliance with the policy. So we're proposing that we show in the strategy a bare minimum of at least 3 weeks for any engagement, noting though that basically every document that leaves here to go to the community for comment always comes to council meeting anyway, and you always choose what the engagement period is going to be anyway, so you'll always have the final say, but the strategy suggests a bare minimum of 3 weeks now instead of 2. And so this table version has an adjustment on page 13 which changes the 2 weeks to 3 weeks and removes the reference to being as referenced in our policy, because that's slightly different now, so we've removed that reference. So if I could ask that you consider that version when you do your deliberations now.
Thank you.
And you've also had that email to you this afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, CEO. Yes, I was just going to comment that you've all got those in your inbox, so you've had the chance to have a look at that before tonight's meeting. If I can have somebody to move the motion to adopt the Community Engagement Strategy 25 to 29. Councillor Horn, and second, Councillor Landells. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, sure. I think when I was looking through this document, particularly the tables on pages 15 to 18, which really show the complexity in community engagement these days. And, it's really quite a science, and there's a lot of targeting, but, I'll use the term horses for courses, but just simply making sure you're getting the right messages to the right target groups. And in the right strategies. Sometimes you might need to use a combination of different engagement techniques to different target groups, etc. So there's a lot of customizing that goes on around that, and I just think this is really done ultimately to give for community benefit. It's also underpinned by some well-established internationally recognised principles under the IAP2 protocols. So yeah, I think it's and with that amendment that CEO has outlined, I think it's a great strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I think it's a tight strategy. There's been improvements. I think we try our best to do. We've got the words, we've got the policy, we've got the strategy. I think they say all the right things. I would like to see us do a better job in some of those, and that's not necessarily the strategy or the policy, it's how it's applied. I'm going to be looking for more engagement policy strategies when people are bringing things to us to discuss. I want to see the template. I want to see how they're going to engage. I want to see it against this strategy, how the staff are engaging with this engagement strategy. So I think it's a great piece of work. All the right things are in there. And I think, you know, it's a great document, and I appreciate the work that's been put into it, and the fact that it has changed over the last, 8 years or so to become a really forward-looking document where I can't find many things in here that I would want to change. So now we just got to make sure we're implementing it well. So I look forward to seeing that.
Yes, I agree. I think that it's a great policy, it's a great strategy, and now it's up to us as councillors to ensure that when particular items come to us, that we insist on seeing a stakeholder engagement plan, and making sure that that covers everything that we require and that it's implemented for some of these items. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Then I'll go back to Councillor Horn to sum up.
William, thank you. Doing well tonight, aren't I? This is the big one. This is council asking you how you wish to interact with us, how we talk, how we listen, and how we involve community, how we build a solid working relationship based on trust and a spirit of understanding, how together we can hopefully dismiss the sentiment that things are being done to us rather than working together.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. We'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2, appointment of acting CEO. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council 1 rescinds the resolution from the 16th of December 2025 council meeting, item 14.6, to appoint the Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton, as acting Chief Executive Officer for the period 25th of February to 10th of March 2026 inclusive. 2, appoints the Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice, as acting Chief Executive Officer for the period 25th of February to 10th of March 2026 inclusive. 3, authorises Sally Rice to exercise all powers and authorities reposed in the position of Chief Executive Officer for the period of the appointment as acting CEO. And 4, notes that should the CEO be unable to undertake the leave within this period or otherwise resumes duties during this period, he will automatically resume all delegations and powers. Can I have someone to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Someone to second the motion? Councillor Landells. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think Sally's an excellent choice, and it's good to see it's being passed around between the sexes. Thank you.
Councillor Landells, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Harvey, would you like to sum up? No. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3, Instrument of Delegation under the Planning and Environment Act, 1987, Section 6A. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council adopts the attached Instrument of Delegation under the Planning and Environment Act, 1987, S6A. Someone to move the motion. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd, and second, Councillor Landells. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, so Council's full set of delegations were reviewed in July 2025, and since that review, a new instrument of delegation has been created for the Planning and Environment Act. The provisions on this instrument must be delegated to council officers to allow for the related work to continue. If they're not formalised now, this work cannot be undertaken by officers. So the attached document is based on legal advice and a template provided by Maddox Lawyers Delegation Services, which council subscribes to. So basically, it's just us giving our mandate to the officers to do those particular roles as per the Act.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks.
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Horn.
I understand why we need delegations, so the statutory planning work keeps moving and we meet timeframes. My main ask is transparency. If anything changes in what's being delegated or how decisions are made, I'd like that clearly explained in open council so the community can see what's delegated, what isn't, and where the oversight sits. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, we'll go back to Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4, Council Action Plan 2025-26 Quarter 2 Progress Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council notes the Quarter 2 2025-26 Council Action Plan Progress Report. Someone to move the motion? Councillor Landells, and second, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Landells, would you like to speak to the motion?
First of all, I think it's great that a progress report comes to council for us to consider, and because that certainly ensures that staff are and CEO are really conscious of that accountability. Looking at the progress here, I'm quite comfortable with the fact that we've got 93.5% of projects, so 43 out of 46 that are either completed or on track. And obviously we have to follow those on track ones in particular through the, because 42 of them, so there's a lot of them, through the remainder of the financial year. But other than that, and there's a couple that are on hold and one that is behind schedule. So, I'm quite comfortable with that report. I think it's to this point in time, it's certainly very satisfactory to me. But obviously, as I say, we've got the big one is those 42 that are on track. Just making sure that they stay on track between now and the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
I had a question just around one of them that's on hold. Develop a new waste management strategy and implement key recommendations. And it's 25, 26, 26, 27, but I see that it's on hold. And I was just wondering whether the Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Allett, could just talk to us about what the plan is for that, because I know there's a lot happening in the waste management area.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, so work did start on progressing down the path of developing the new waste strategy. The hold-up has just been to wait for the state government to clarify its direction. So the state introduced legislation a couple of years back, which revolutionises or certainly brings wholesale change to our curbside services. So we've sort of heard around organics being rolled out to all properties, glass collection. Indigo Shire's much further down the track than probably a lot of other councils in the state. So, not such a big change for us, but I think particularly glass is one that the legislation is in place, but there's, been a lot of pushback, questions asked, and probably clarity needed for the government before we work out exactly what our future direction looks like. So there is a briefing coming to council in the next couple of weeks, so we'll be able to outline where things are at. But yeah, look, that's the main reason for the hold-up, just to hit pause so we can get some clarity on some state government directions in relation to those curbside services.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I really value these updates because they let the community see how we're tracking and give us the chance to correct or adjust if necessary. Where items are off track or at risk, it's important that councillors come back to open meeting with the why and the next steps so residents can follow through the story.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I think the great thing about this update is that this goes a long way to answering the question of, people come up to me in the street and I'll sit there and go, what does the council do? Everyone talks about the very obvious things the council does, and that's fine. But when you look at these over these 6 activities over the four themes, it just shows how far the council goes into our lives and supports us in living here, and supports provides the services and the infrastructure to live in any community. And when you see it like this as an overview, you realise there's no other level of government that can do it. If councils disappeared, communities would set up and do exactly this. So it's just a great insight to be able to. It also sits there and it goes, oh my God, should we be doing everything there? And every time I go through this list, I look at it and go, yeah, we should do that. We should do that. So it's just a really good insight for people to understand the complexity of local government and the depth that councils go into the community.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Landells, would you like to sum up?
Thank you. Yeah, I, as I sort of said initially, to me, it's great that this comes to council, and it's also, there's transparency there for the community, and it's quite a simple way for us to assess how progress is going. I'd just like to thank each of the councillors for the points that they made, which I think are really, really important to give a little bit of extra context rather. And yeah, I don't really have anything more to add, really. I just think it's it's so far so good, and but obviously, as I say, there's there's a big number of actions that are on track, and obviously that's the aim, that they all get completed by the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5, Advisory Committee Minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation that Council accepts the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees. 1, Indigo. Can I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Shepherd, someone to second the motion? Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion?
Having read these minutes, I'm just interested in the fact that there was a discussion and forum planning on affordable housing, and the discussion was around affordable housing versus housing affordability in council's sphere of influence, farm succession planning and second dwellings in farming zone, and frustration around Indigo Shire having one farming zone and the same rules applying to large farms and small intensive farms. I was just interested. I see there's no action or no to council. There's no recommendation. I'm just wondering, did anything come out of that discussion? Those people that attend the Indigo or staff who attended that meeting? I'm just wondering where we go next with that discussion, because Indigo, I imagine, would be a good advisory committee to be looking at that. So a question to either, I'm happy for anyone who's a member of that, or to Sally Rice, Director of Community and Economic Development, who attended as well.
Sure, thank you. So as we know, housing is a complex issue that's affecting many parts of Victoria. It's certainly highlighted in the recently endorsed People Place Prosperity Economic Development Strategy here at Indigo. So the fact that the Indigo Committee put housing on the agenda for a discussion made perfect sense, and it was what eventuated was the beginning of a very important conversation, and we spoke broadly about the housing issues and the complexity of that whole issue. So the conversation is ongoing, and the next action will be for some of the staff, including myself, to attend this week's what's it called, a housing crisis forum held in Wangaratta this Thursday night, hosted by the member for Indi, Dr. Helen Haynes. So that'll be a really good fact-finding mission for council to get a better understanding of what the issue overall involves and what our role as a small regional council, rural council is, and what our sphere of influence is and where we should be focusing our efforts. So it's an ongoing piece of work, but a really good conversation to be having.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I'm on that committee, and I suppose just to paint the picture of the context that it came up, it's I don't think it was an agenda item as such, but just came up in general conversations about the challenge that businesses are having within the Shire, and how the root cause of a lot of those problems is the lack of housing and therefore affordable housing. And in committee we talked about and acknowledged the water and sewer infrastructure limitations, and also we wanted to create a reality check, and that came in when we talked about the number of houses that the housing target that Indigo's got is 3,100. The minutes record this, and that the housing target of 3,100 new homes by 2050, and at the moment we're running at around 100 new houses or dwellings built each year in the Shire, but that needs to grow by 30% to meet the I think it's a state government target of 3,100. So I think that the flavour around the committee was something of the size of the problem. It's when you're that far behind and everyone's talking about it, and it's just a reality check that it is an issue. So many businesses were talking about how they can't grow, they can't get staff, and it is a real issue. And we see it, we know it, but the challenge is what can be done about it. That's the real challenge.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, Councillor Landells.
Thank you. Look, on this topic, it's obviously one that I guess growth strategies for housing is something that comes up quite a lot that we've been discussing in briefings, and I was wondering if the Director of Planning and Corporate Services can maybe take a question on this about we're aware that with bushfire overlays, there's quite limited options for housing growth in Yakandanda, Beechworth and other areas like that, Stanley. So what's, with those targets from the state government, are we confident that other areas of the Shire have the capacity to take up that, I guess, yeah, those growth targets?
Greg Pinkerton, Director Planning and Corporate Services. Moving desks, back to a microphone.
Thank you. Good question. Work is currently underway on that front. So the growth strategy that's in train at the moment will answer exactly that question. It used to be that you could do, or it used to be quite common for councils to do planning in small areas, so do township by township, but that changed quite a few years ago, and now the expectation is that we do a broad-based strategy, and that's exactly what we're doing. So we're partway through that. I think we're getting closer to community consultation every day. That draft should be out mid-year, and then that will answer that question in quite a comprehensive way, and with an eye to that 3,000 target, 3,100 target. We're also about to go out to community consultation soon on Stanley, you mentioned Stanley, and there's a specific piece of work that looks at the bushfire risk and Stanley's aspirations for growth and what that will look like. So work underway, but nothing at the moment that is definitive output from that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No. Then we'll go back to Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? No, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.6, informal meeting of councillors record. The item is for decision. The recommendation that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors record. Someone to move the motion? Councillor Harvey. Someone to second the motion? Councillor Horn. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Sorry, I've just got confused here with my pages. Item 15, notices of motion, of which there are none. Item 16, councillor reports. Are there any councillor reports? I'll just give a brief report. On Wednesday this week, I went to Melbourne to attend the Regional Council's Victoria State Election Priorities launch. Rural Councils Victoria, or RCV, is an alliance of 38 rural councils in Victoria advocating for sustainable, prosperous and livable rural communities, and Indigo Shire Council is one of those councils that's a member of RCV. RCV does advocacy on behalf of the 38 councils, and one of the things that they launched on Wednesday was what their advocacy will be for the Victorian state election that's coming up. I just thought I'd just share what their platform is for their advocacy. So the RCV advocacy is that Victoria should establish a 1 billion Rural and Regional Victoria Productivity and Growth Fund. This fund would comprise 4 streams designed to enhance productivity, livability and investment, with at least 25% of the fund guaranteed for rural Victoria. So there are 4 objectives. The first objective is to renew ageing local assets that support participation, community resilience and growth, which I'm sure we would all agree is an issue in Indigo. The second objective is to provide investment for rural councils and businesses to grow jobs, economic activity and local prosperity. The third objective is to address structural funding gaps and cost pressures on rural councils. And the fourth objective, which we've just been talking about, which is housing supply and infrastructure, is to unlock rural housing with enabling infrastructure like water, sewer, power, council developer support and risk mitigation, and to deliver more rural housing capacity. So we can see very close alignment there with those 4 objectives, and the issues that we're experiencing here in Indigo Shire are obviously very consistent with the other 38 rural councils in Victoria that form part of RCV. Are there any? $1 billion. So we'll hopefully see some progress on that advocacy. Is there any other councillor reports? No. So we'll move on to item 16.2, which is the Mayor's Diary. It's for information. Item 17 is the decision register, and that's there for information, which will then move on to general business. Are there any general business items for tonight's council meeting? Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could the CEO give council an update on the negotiations regarding the future of the National Trust carriages which are currently stored at Beechworth? What's happening about those? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Through you, Deputy Mayor. The carriages have been in the custodianship or ownership of the National Trust for many years. The protection and preservation of the carriages is the responsibility of the National Trust as custodian of the Trust's larger Victoria-wide carriage collection, and this is what the National Trust exists to do, to preserve and share heritage. So just over 3 years ago, the National Trust moved the carriages to a secure location or a secure storage to conduct professional collections management work, including condition assessments, conservation cleaning, research on title, legacy loans, provenance and significance. And by provenance, we mean trying to track through the original history of the carriages themselves. And after that work, the National Trust are now relocating 12 carriages which are not locally provenanced to join other National Trust carriages displayed at various National Trust properties across Victoria. Also, some of the lenders have also asked the National Trust to return their carriages, so they don't own all of them, they're a custodian for some of them, so some of them have been asked to be returned. Last week, and so since that announcement from the National Trust about what they've found and what they're doing with the carriages, last week Council met with members of the Beechworth History and Heritage Society, because they've obviously expressed their interest in the future of the carriages. And we were delighted that I'll call them the society for short, we're delighted the society wished to work with the National Trust to develop a community-led solution. And we certainly would welcome that, encourage that and support that as far as we can. The Society and the National Trust, they met on Monday this week to explore that possibility. So the National Trust welcomes the Society's leadership in developing a community-led solution for the protection, preservation and public access for the Beechworth provenance carriages. So they've come to a solution for now to say that they'll keep those carriages that are Beechworth provenance in secure storage where they currently are for several more months, while there's time now for the Society and the National Trust to try and come up with alternate solutions with a community-led solution for that. So the Society will now go away and consider suitable exhibition space options which can support the protection, preservation and public access requirements. And I think that'll be including working with the community to try and find other community-led solutions in that regard. It's probably worthwhile pointing out too that despite what some have suggested is an option, it's clear the National Trust have repeatedly confirmed that the Beechworth goods shed is not a suitable location for the carriages. The Trust have made that repeatedly confirmed that's not an option. So those that suggest that option is not viable. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items for GB, general business? Councillor Landels.
Yes, thank you. Can the CEO please provide an update on the Mayday Hills head lease situation and I guess the flow on leases to the Beechworth Childcare and Beechworth Kindergarten?
Sure. And I guess Councillor Shepherd, given your previous conflicts, declarations, I'll just make a statement of fact, and then if there's any further debate, then I think you might want to consider your position. But I think if I just give a factual answer to that, then that's fine. Yeah. So the lease between Indigo Shire and Mayday Hills has been resolved, and that's now been signed. There was cause to need to amend the lease. It's a 100-year lease or so. There's about 30 years down, about 70 still to run, but there was cause to make changes to that lease, and that has now been concluded and now signed off. So that's all clear and ready to go. We're now got a work in progress now on the sublease to the two tenants who this council had endorsed last year to be the two subtenants. So we're now working through those leases with those two parties, Beechworth Kindergarten and the Beechworth Childcare and Early Years Group.
Thank you. Any other items of general business? No. That then brings us to item 20, meeting closure. I declare the meeting closed at 8:09 p.m. The next council meeting is on Tuesday, the 31st of March, 2026 at 6:30 p.m.